All right, let's jump right in. When you hear multiple sclerosis, what's the first thing that pops into your head? For a lot of us, it's things we can actually see, like a tremor or someone having trouble walking. But what if the toughest, most life-altering parts of MS were things you couldn't see at all? That's exactly what we're going to unpack today. The hidden, invisible side of this condition. This quote from Mother Teresa, it really sets the stage for everything we're about to talk about. It's such a simple but powerful reminder to, just pause, to try and understand what someone's going through before we jump to conclusions based on what we think we see. And this slide, this gets right to the heart of it. On the one hand, you've got the symptoms that are obvious to an outsider, the tremors, the weakness. But on the other side, that's where the real war is often being fought. We're talking about a level of fatigue that's bone deep, constant pain, and a brain fog that can make simple tasks feel impossible. These are the things that can truly derail a life, and yet they're completely hidden from view. So, let's pull back the curtain on this unseen struggle. We're going to go way beyond the obvious to really understand what's going on. Let's start with the big ones, the symptoms that just sap a person's physical and emotional batteries: fatigue and depression. These are two of the most common and, honestly, most misunderstood parts of MS. I really want to be crystal clear here. MS fatigue is not the same as being tired, not even close. It's a debilitating, all-consuming exhaustion. So many people say it's their single worst symptom. And the crucial thing to get is that it has a direct physical cause. It's tied to the actual lesions in the brain. And this fatigue, it often has a very specific rhythm. You can wake up, feel totally fine after a full night's sleep, ready to take on the day, but then a few hours in, wham, it hits you like a brick wall. This crash is so intense that taking a nap isn't a luxury, it's a non-negotiable part of just getting through the day. And think about it, this gets even worse when other invisible things like pain or bladder issues are wrecking your sleep to begin with. Now, it's so easy to think, well, of course they're depressed, they have a difficult diagnosis. And that's part of it, for sure. But with MS, there's a major twist. The disease itself, the lesions forming in certain parts of the brain, can physically cause depression. It's a direct symptom, not just a reaction. But here's the hopeful part. The treatments for this are getting really, really smart. Since these symptoms are so connected, doctors can prescribe medications that do double duty. You might get an antidepressant that's specifically known to also help with fatigue, or one that also targets nerve pain. It's like a 2-for-1 deal, tackling multiple invisible problems with one targeted solution. So, moving on from energy and mood, MS can also make a person feel like their own senses are betraying them. This leads to a whole other group of invisible struggles, like pain, weird vision problems, and a really strange sensitivity to heat. Can you believe it? Doctors used to think MS was a painless disease. We now know that is completely 100% wrong. Nerve pain is incredibly common. And it's not a normal ache. It's often a bizarre burning or a sharp stabbing feeling. Sometimes it shows up as the MS hug, this awful, tight squeezing sensation around your chest. So here's a question that comes up all the time, especially in the summer. Why does heat, even just from a hot shower, seem to make every single symptom flare up and feel so much worse? The answer is actually pretty fascinating and really important. It's not causing new damage. What's happening is that the heat causes nerves that are already damaged by MS to kind of short circuit. Think of it like a frayed wire. It works okay when it's cool, but when you heat it up, the signal just doesn't get through as well. It's a temporary thing, but it's so intense that some people have literally moved from hot places like Arizona to get away from the summer. Now with vision, we're not usually talking about total blindness. It's often much more subtle. Lingering things from past inflammation, like little gaps in your vision, or colors looking washed out, or things just not being quite as sharp as they used to be. You can still drive, you can still function, but it's this constant, low-level, invisible annoyance that you're dealing with every single day. Okay, this next part gets pretty personal, but it's so important because the invisible struggle can also be about losing a sense of control over your own body, from the most basic functions to how your muscles actually move. That term, detrusor sphincter dyssynergia, is a real mouthful, isn't it? But what it boils down to is a communication breakdown. It's a short circuit. The brain sends the signal to the bladder saying, okay, time to empty, but the sphincter muscle down below never gets the memo to relax. The result? You can't empty your bladder all the way, which means you have this constant urge to go all day and all night. This is such a classic misunderstanding. You might see someone walking totally fine, and then 5 minutes later, it looks like they're dragging their leg. And you might think, what's going on? It's not about raw strength or weakness. It's about endurance. The nerve signals are fine for a short burst, but they just can't keep firing over and over. That nerve's battery runs out, and fast. And then there's spasticity, that awful muscle tightness and cramping. It's another one of those hidden battles. But the good news here is there's a whole toolbox people can use to fight back. It starts with simple stuff like staying hydrated and daily stretching, but it goes all the way up to muscle relaxants and even medical marijuana. There are options. And look, we have to talk about this one too, because it's so common, but so rarely discussed. The nerve damage from MS can cause sexual dysfunction for both men and women. It's a really tough thing to bring up with your doctor, I get it. But it's so important because there are often really effective treatments out there. All right, finally, let's talk about what might be one of the most frightening invisible symptoms of all: cognitive fog. And I need to stress this. This has absolutely nothing to do with how smart someone is. It's about the brain's processing speed. This quote from an accountant with MS. Man, it just breaks your heart because it explains it perfectly. He still has all the knowledge. He knows how to be an accountant. What he's lost is the speed, the ability to keep up with the pace that his job and life demands. So what does this cognitive fog actually feel like? Imagine your brain is a super powerful computer, but you're trying to run it on a dial-up internet connection. You struggle to process things quickly, you can't pay attention like you used to, and multitasking becomes a nightmare. And again, this can happen to anyone. We're talking CEOs, lawyers, engineers. It's a loss of function, not intelligence. So let's bring this all home. We've taken a journey through this kind of unseen world of MS, and the whole point really was just to look past the surface and maybe build a little bit more empathy. And you know what? This is the big takeaway. This is so much bigger than just MS. It's a universal truth about life. So much of human suffering is completely invisible. That person you see every day who looks like they have it all together, like their life is simple and easy, they could be fighting battles that you know absolutely nothing about. And so that really leaves us with this final question. It's something for all of us to just sit with for a minute. How often do we look at somebody and make a snap judgment without ever once stopping to consider the invisible struggles they might be facing inside? Definitely something to think about.